Welcome to Airwave. Airwave is a conversation hosted by me, Morgan Page, where music and technology converge to tell the stories behind the artists and the architects of creativity and technology. Radio is where I first discovered electronic music in the countryside of Vermont, and music and technology provided the path forward. Airwave is an exploration of how people make their art and how technology plays an essential role in the process. The show is largely conversational, but doesn't shy away from going deep and technical in the process. All right, so my guest this week is New York-based producer CID. We had a great conversation about the current state of dance music, the future of technology. He's done some incredible records with Kaskade, Diablo, Galantis, and many more. He's been a fixture in the house music scene, so you've definitely heard his work out there. And my personal favorite highlight of his career is his remix for Lana Del Rey for the track Summertime Sadness. He did that with Cedric Gervais, won a Grammy for it. So we're going to hear all about that process, a little bit of drama along the way, but that story had to be told. So we got into it. We had a couple tech issues. He got very passionate bumping the mic, so you may hear that. Just ignore that. Enjoy the conversation. It's a great one with CID. This is Airwave with Morgan Page. Airwave is brought to you by RME Audio. Innovative, user-friendly, and high-quality digital audio solutions, RME offers a comprehensive range of audio interfaces, converters, and mic preamps, all based around its unique and innovative core technologies. Multi-platform connectivity across Windows and Mac OS and iOS class compliance has earned RME a global reputation for providing support to all users on all platforms. Visit rme-usa.com to learn more. Okay, so we were talking about the new world of media and what's happening this year. It feels a little crazy. Mm-hmm. We have SiriusXM buying a majority of Pandora. We're seeing AI replacing DJs out there. Have you seen any crazy other new trends happening in the world out there?
Yeah, people want to listen to what they want. I think we're in a time where it's just about instant gratification. So I think people want the song that they want to hear in that moment, and they're going to listen to it, Yeah,
I feel like these certain services, you've got Apple Music behind a paywall, you've got, you have podcasts on Spotify as well, and there's a paywall for that. But I feel like things are going to change drastically with more of the technology, because you can't get our shows on demand right now on the app on SiriusXM. Right now, it's just, you got to catch it old school broadcast style directly.
Yeah. Do you repost yours on SoundCloud?
I do it, but we get so many takedown issues.
Really?
Yeah, it's a big problem. Wow. That's one reason I'm doing the show, the interview thing. You can't take my voice down. Yeah. There's zero music in this show.
Yeah. Oh, cool.
Maybe I'm going to do some sound designs.
Can we sing?
Yeah, we can sing. Swivel was here a few days ago, and he has this new plugin called The Sauce, which is like a vocal chop treatment.
I didn't know what you made.
Yeah.
Is that his first plugin?
Yeah, first
DJ
plugin.
Swivel?
Yeah, the guy that did Don't Let Me Down and Closer. And he did his own plugin.
The Sauce. Yeah, I like it already.
I wanted to be kind of cool, because on the podcast I could demonstrate the plugin on my voice as I'm talking about it. It's a whole new theater of the mind.
Yeah, that was sick.
All right, so I want to start, let's see, at the beginning, where did all of this start for you? You grew up, and I was reading your background, you started really early.
Yeah, so my dad still has a restaurant and catering hall in New York, and I must have been probably 8 or 9 years old, and just going there on weekends. And my mom, obviously I wasn't there super late, but they would do these private parties in the back, and there was this one guy who was the resident DJ that my dad would always book for the for these events and stuff. And from then I was just fascinated, and he was such a nice guy. That he would just be like, put this fader up or press this button. And I think, I was probably, I'd say I was in 7th grade. So, 11 or 12 around that time. And I had another friend that we were in class together who was also always fascinated with music. And we started DJing together. I went and I bought a used Vestax mixer. And this DJ, he let me borrow this dual Denon CD player. And that's where we started, just messing around. And it just grew from there. And through high school, I ended up in my dad's, as I got better, I figured out all the music because it was a lot of Latin parties. So I started kind of taking over like the parties that guy was doing. My dad wouldn't say like, you know, book this kid. He'd be like, oh, here's a number of a DJ, check him out, not tell him I was his son or anything. And I started getting booked and, you know, was able to make money on like just doing mobile stuff. And then just from the beginning though, like around that time, I ended up buying Techniques, and there was like a local record shop, you know, close to my house, and I would go there, and just from the beginning, I was always like drawn to electronic music. Especially New York was so hip hop driven back then. And yeah, that's what inspired me to then kind of transition to wanting to learn how to make the music.
I remember not being able to afford Techniques and thinking like it was the holy grail. They were these indestructible wheels of steel. And I was always saving up for an MPC or Techniques 1200s. And it was always this insurmountable thing to get a direct drive turntable.
Yeah, I mean, my first one, I will say my mom, this was early on too. She bought me a Newmark belt drive. But it was really once I started doing these mobile parties that I was able to kind of, you know, be self-sufficient and not have to, you know, because they were a lot of money back then. But yeah, and then I was on vinyl for a while. On vinyl, I maybe played like 2 or 3 shows, you know, but it was mostly just as a hobby and for fun. I'm doing that stuff. And then, yeah, that's what it was for me. It was, you know, that kind of led me to the producing side, I guess.
So when was the tipping point that happened where this was full-time career?
Well, I finished college. I went to school for accounting.
Wow.
And my junior year, I'd finished, it was like the first record that I ever finished. And I did it in Reason. That's what I jumped to first. And I sent it to Marcus Schultz. And 4 weeks later, I get an email back, and Marcus is like, holy shit. Literally his words were, holy shit, this song is incredible. Is it still available? I want to sign it.
Wow.
And I was like, this is some kind of joke or something. So I was like, oh, okay, yeah, give me a call. And I was living at home, and he calls me on the phone. And at the time, I was such a huge, like, global DJ broadcast fan, huge Cold Harbor fan. And he's like, yeah, like, you know, I want to sign this. So I ended up signing it to Cold Harbor, which was through Armada at the time. And I remember right after the release, like the first time that Marcus was ever in New York, he played a show. I think it was at the time a club called Spirit. And I had no contact to him, like, other than email or whatever. And I remember him getting there and kind of right as he's going to go on the stage, I was like, yo, I had went by a different name. And he's like, I remember like his eyes lit up. He's like, man, I've been playing this track everywhere. Wait till you hear it. And I'd never
heard it live, right?
Never. I've never heard I'd never heard any of my music live outside of my bedroom, you know, or in a car or whatever. And yeah, that was one of those moments for me that I was like, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life, you know?
And you know it. And I feel like even the 12-year-old Sid, the 12-year-old self knows like something happens even back then that triggers that passion. Maybe some people discover it later in life, but did you know when you were 12?
Oh yeah, I still had, I mean, I don't know where it is right now, but so 8th grade, we had like, it was like my elementary school, quote unquote, like graduation yearbook. And it put for every person in the class, like, what do you want to do? You know, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I put down, I was like, I want to be a DJ, you know? And obviously they kind of go hand in hand, but that's what I wrote back then.
Yeah, I feel like you know early on.
Yeah.
I think, and the first time hearing your music live, did you even recognize your song? I mean, I feel like
no, that's so weird you say that. I was with a group of friends, and it was like, you know, we're in the middle of the crowd at this point, you know? And my buddy says to me, Carlos, like, I think he's mixing in your track right now. And he heard it before I did. That's funny you say that, like, but yeah, that actually happened. Like, I was like, oh shit, that is, yeah.
I remember playing my music out for the first time through like a real sound system, and the kick completely was unrecognizable to me because it's going through all this compression, limiting, and I still don't even know how live sound totally works. It's a black art to me, but to hear that in the space, in a loud space with glasses smashing, people screaming. My music was in an Irish pub, Phoenix Landing in Boston.
Damn, that's crazy.
But it's weird. And that was with live gear. Like, I literally brought the EMU sampler and the MPC and the stuff live. Yeah. So there was no mastering on the track, so it was extra chunky.
Yeah. I had no idea about mastering. When I did this track, the same week this is the first thing I really ever finished, full arrangement thing. And I had read a magazine like that week. And because at the time, there wasn't like, I'm pretty sure YouTube already existed, but there wasn't all these tutorials on really anything. And I would go to Barnes & Noble, I would buy these magazines, and I remember reading this article. It was a Robbie Rivera interview, and he talked about this concept of sidechain. And before that, I had no idea. I didn't know to do it. So I did that, and then threw on, like, obviously, and mixed it. I didn't even know what mixing was. You know, it was kind of that's where I was. And just threw a limiter on at the end. And I asked Marcus, I was like, do you need me to, like, send you, like, without this, limiter thing? Or he's like, no, it sounds great. And I was like, oh, all right. So it wasn't even mastered, really. Like, that was it. Like, it was strange.
So he was manually going through all these submissions by himself? Yeah, an assistant?
I don't know that. I feel like I may have asked him, or I heard him say it. I know he definitely listened through what I don't know if I'm making this up, but I feel like I remember, like, somebody would drop everything into one folder and he would go through and check it from there.
Wow. Yeah. From there, you had that tipping point, that seminal moment where you signed the track. And did you have other labels making offers?
Nothing. What was next? I had no contact, nothing. What was next was me saying, at the time I was a huge Gabriel and Dresden fan also. And I was like, they're using Logic. I'm using Reason. Like, this Reason isn't that good. So I went and I bought, like, the academic version of Logic, and basically started kind of back at zero. And, like, I obviously was, like, under the idea of, like, I probably need to keep releasing music to kind of grow something. But I kind of had a bit of a fluke moment, I think, making that random thing in Reason, that it was really just, I started over. And I'd sent a couple things to Marcus, but there was no real reaction. So I just, kept doing it for fun. And yeah, I guess the next moment for me was, at this time I was probably senior in college. And I had a residency at this little, like, downstairs basement lounge in New York City. And I ran into a buddy of mine from high school. And he's like, well, this was actually right after I graduated college. This was after I had this residency around that time. Right after I graduated, he's like, what are you doing? And I was like, I'm trying to produce music, DJing. He's like, well, why don't you come by my dad's studio? And I was like, yeah, sure. And I'd forgotten his dad was Richie Kanata. He was Billy Joel's sax player. Wow. And he still has this amazing studio in Glen Cove in New York. And he's like, yeah, come by. Like, my dad will give you an internship. And I was thinking, like, I have two older brothers, so I knew kind of, I've been able to see in my life the way they've gone through different phases in theirs. And I remember my middle brother, he was always an artist, and he's really successful in what he does. But right after graduating college, he was kind of like, hadn't figured it out. And, the kind of patience wore off on my parents, where they were like, what are you doing? And I was like thinking, like, yo, maybe I'm still doing the DJ thing, but maybe if I get this internship, like, this will give me, be a step in the right direction. And I don't have to worry about them saying, why aren't you working in accounting? That's what you studied, or something like that. So I took this internship, and that was that next moment that I just got lost in studio. And, there was about 2 or 3 engineers there. The owner, took a liking to me, and after a few months, he'd given me keys to the studio. He was like, whenever nobody's using the rooms, you can use it, Wow. And I was able to kind of, yes, I learned from the engineers, but it wasn't, they weren't like actually necessarily teaching me anything. It was more going in and just like figuring out how this stuff worked that I learned, I think, the most. Yeah. And then, there's so many talented people out there. I think I just got lucky in meeting certain people that have helped me along the way. And it was this guy, Richie Kaskade, he played sax, and he was playing a lot, I think every week or something, at Tao, the restaurant in New York.
Wow.
And there was a DJ there, and who would play with him, and he was a house DJ. And so Richie was, from my end, I'm hearing, oh, there's this DJ, he's got a house label, he's got an artist project. He's like, I want to bring him to the studio, work with us and like, make some music. And I was like, yeah, cool. So he brought him to the studio one day, and we connected like, immediately. And I feel like I had so much, even though I kind of had that background in electronic music, I really didn't know the history of it at that point. And this guy's like, his name is Greg Bahari. He's like an encyclopedia of house and stuff. And so I started working with him a lot. And that's where I really, I think, learned not only about sampling, but like how to mix a house record. He had a project called Hot 22 and a label called Gossip Records. That was that moment where I transitioned from kind of being at that big, expensive studio. He came out a couple times, and then he's like, he's like, you really don't need all this stuff. And I was like, well, what do you mean? Like, it's going to sound better. It's an SSL console, Neve, pre's, whatever, analog EQs and compressors they had. And he's like, honestly, most people can't tell the difference. So he lived in New Jersey, so I started driving down every week and working with him in his studio. And he had just a basic room. And yeah, it was just that kind of stretch that I think I got better and better at just making.
What years was this in New Jersey?
2009, 2010. And then what kind of the next step, which is kind of, I think, what it created a lot of opportunities for me, was Greg used to live in Miami, worked with this one guy named Mohammed Moretta, who was like this old school DJ from Miami. And he had done this one song called Dominica, Gotta Let You Go. He wrote that song, and he was trying to revive that project. And so Greg said, hey, come work with us in the studio in New Jersey. So he came up for a week, we worked, and then he went down to Miami. And then a couple weeks or a month or a couple months later, maybe, Greg calls me. He's like, oh, like, have you heard of this guy, Cedric Gervais? And I was like, yeah. And he's like, well, he's looking for someone to help him mix, these songs that he has. And Mohammed, said, oh, there's this kid in New York who's, really talented, and, you should check him out. So that's how the connection to Cedric happened. Random, What
was the first song?
Well, the first time I went down, he had like a whole bunch of production already done, and he's like, these are done. I need to get them mixed. I was like, yeah, sure, I can mix them. So that was like maybe the first. I went down. I remember like the first time. I think he was. I hope he was happy. Honestly, I was so nervous. Like,
and this was just mixing at first, and then led to more musical production work?
Yeah. So yeah, at the beginning, and I kind of could fumble. I never went to school for this. And the way Greg taught me was more like by feel instead of like technical how to do this shit. So I knew how to get stuff to sound good, but I felt like I was kind of faking it, Like when I was working with Cedric, I was like, I don't know what the fuck I'm doing, but I'll figure out how to make it sound good. And then I remember, I think the first thing was he had this one vocal, and I like didn't love the production. And I was like, hey, Cedric, like, I produced too, like, why don't we give this a shot and try to come up with a new production on this together? And he's like, yeah. And then that's when he realized I could kind of do, everything around across the board. So that's when we really started working together as far as, collaborating on the production as well. And the first thing we did was a song called Molly.
Right.
So that was, I'm lying. We probably did a bunch of other records before that, but I'm pretty sure that was definitely the first major one that I worked on with him that came out.
How long was it till Summertime Sadness?
I don't know, 2010. So we had put out a bunch of stuff, in between, maybe less than 2 years. It's got to have to have been less than 2 years.
You eventually got your proper credit for that. So you won a Grammy for the remix, Summertime Sadness. Still one of my favorite remixes of all time. timeless. Talk about that moment, that whole process of going. You went to the Grammys, though, right?
Yeah.
Did you walk the?
Yeah, I was there. Yeah, I was there. Look, I never. It's not like I didn't know what I was signing up for. I was there to kind of. Cedric has a vision for something. I'm, gonna produce it with him, and knowing this is Cedric's thing. I think though, like, it was a little bit of me, just that whole situation. It was incredible. Obviously, it's one of those things that universally, it doesn't matter where you are in the world, people know what a Grammy is. I think for my family, it was kind of one of those moments that they like said, wow, like, it was kind of like he's been doing this for a while now, and he's accomplished this.
It's validation.
Validation, yeah, and then more than for me than I think for them. But yeah, obviously, I did a lot on that, and it took me. I was under the presumption that I was going to get the Grammy right away, but I didn't. Obviously, because Cedric's name was on the remix. I think you had a lot to do with helping me make sure that.
Got the conversation started.
Yeah, so they were able to go back, and on the label copy, my name was there.
I think Jimmy Douglas.
Yeah, Jimmy was
really
the first.
Did it.
Yeah,
I can't take credit for it, but Jimmy did a lot.
Yeah, and I was able to get my own Grammy, and I'm really proud of it, and it's amazing. Yeah.
Where's the Grammy right now?
In my bedroom.
Nice.
Yeah, 'cause I have my studio separate, and it's not like the most secure building. But once I'm going to be building a new studio soon. I'm definitely going to have it in there.
Okay, so you mentioned your new studio. What's the new setup going to be like?
So, kind of came upon an opportunity that I'm going to be buying a house in Bushwick, where I live now. And the downstairs, I want to just build out like a proper studio there and have it at home, for one. So once I do that, then, I'm excited. I have a room like yours.
So you've been commuting to the studio?
I mean, well, it's not. I live right off the L train in New York, and it's 2 stops on the train. So I'm at the studio in 10 minutes.
I am jealous of people that have that dedicated workspace that is a little bit of a commute where you're checking your mix downs during the drive. I think that's really cool. But I hate the feeling of like the clock is ticking on studio time. But I do love what a lot of guys are doing, where they're doing Airbnbs. And for the budget of what a day rate would be for a studio, you get a whole house.
Yeah.
And I think these days the hardware and the software is so good, you don't have to have a treated room. You could literally just have a room that is a theater room, maybe the movie theater room, as a lot of people do. It just has enough soft furniture in it. And record your parts there, bring a bunch of UAD stuff, track with a twin. I mean, you've got like major records, like Post Malone stuff is just tracked with a twin and a Sony mic. It's crazy. It's a new era.
Yeah.
Okay, so walk me through some of the collaborations, like Kaskade, probably one of the most notable collaborations. What's it like working with all these producers? And I mean, everybody has their own method. How do you approach it?
It's it's different every time. I'd say, well, the stuff with Don was first. So I met Don
Diablo?
Don Diablo, yeah. At the time, he was being managed by someone else within Cedric's management company. And he had been kind of transitioning sound-wise. He was doing like the really electro stuff. And then he had finished a track called Starlight that was coming out on Axstone. So, that's where he was going musically. And they connected us, not to say for me to, help him make his music. It was more like, just talk to Carlos and, whatever. And so we connected over Skype. And we just hit it off. First thing we did together was a remix to he put out a song called Give It All with Alex Clare. And it was just, he's insanely talented in so many ways. And he's like, listen, I got this break idea. And I was like, cool, I'll come up with a drop idea. And we would just toss files back and forth. And we did a couple like that. And then finally, like after that one, we did another one called Prototype, which was the same thing. He's like, I got this break idea. I was like, I got this drop idea. And it's like half a step up or something. And I changed the key and it worked. And that one was called Prototype. And then he came to New York and, this is when I was still living at home. He came into my house and we were like, let's do something different. Like I was kind of a little over what was happening. Let's make some housey style thing that maybe couldn't figure out a way to fit in our sets. And we did a track called Got Me Thinking. And we had that idea of like just having these like big buildups when nobody, I think, that wasn't making like super EDM-y stuff was doing. We did that one, came out on Size X. And a lot of people, I think if I have to say a moment that helped break me as a, DJ, producer, artist, it was probably that song. We put that out and Tiesto followed me on Twitter. Steve Angelo followed me on Twitter, and it opened those doors just for myself to be like, all right, once I have the right record to get to them, like I have that space.
Get the cosign.
Yeah. Around that time, I had heard Kaskade he had done a mashup of Got Me Thinking with Last Chance. And he was playing it a lot. And, working with Cedric, I had this guy, Greg Bahari, was not only mentoring me through all of this, but he was almost like a manager. But I got to a point where I was like, I really need somebody in my corner. And I'd heard Ed Shapiro. You're with Ed, right?
Yeah. Get me Ed Shapiro on the phone.
Yeah.
Mariah Carey's lawyer, Rihanna's lawyer.
Yeah,
my lawyer.
We're officially like his least favorite clients now, unless we mention him in a song,
right?
Like Mariah Carey. So I had heard his name. I Googled it. There was a number, and I called it. And his secretary put me through to him. That's how I met Ed. And I told him, I was like, yeah, I kind of want a Grammy, blah, blah. He's like, what? He's like, when you're back in New York, like, let's link up. So first thing he did was ask Kaskade. He's like, oh, have you heard of this guy, Sid? And he was like, yeah, I've been playing this track, Got Me Thinking. So Ed was the one who introduced us. And it was over email. And at first it was super casual. He's like, just keep sending me music. And I was like, yeah, sure. Long story short, there was a couple records that he heard. And I think that's when Ryan Kaskade was like, I believe in this kid. I want to help him. And I ended up signing with his manager at the time, Stephanie LaFera. He was like, sign with her. She's a great manager. She knows how I work. We'll be able to kind of help you in this, situation if we're doing a collab or whatever. Surprisingly, the first collab we did was a song called Us. And everyone thinks that he brought the vocal and like break, and then I did the drop. But in this one, it was actually the opposite. I had this track idea and I sent it to, what were their names? They did Runaway for Galantis, actually. Mm-hmm. And they wrote that top line. And then I sent that I had over my chords, whatever. Then I sent the idea that I had to Ryan, and then he worked on it and made it into what it was. But that was the first one. Yeah.
I feel like it's crazy because I feel like it's a little more underground than some of the main vocal singles Kaskade's done, but has streaming numbers are amazing on it. What do you think resonated with that versus some of the other tracks?
I think, obviously, Ryan has had countless of those records that really resonate with people and kind of bring out or connect with them on an emotional level. I'd say that was the first one where I ever had an experience where I literally was walking through a festival that I had played one summer, and it was a couple, and they took off their ring, and inside the ring was like the lyric of Us, and I was like, holy shit, that's crazy. So I don't know. I mean, that was my experience with that song, that it really, I think, connected with people.
When you get the tattoos and the inscriptions, you're on the right track.
Thinking nobody has any Sid tattoos yet. I haven't made it. Yeah, it's crazy. Sweet Memories is slowly, I think for me, that's that one record. It doesn't matter where I play, it always ends up in my set. Not that I focus on numbers or anything, but it's still there a couple years later, streaming wise.
Has it changed how you navigate things now? Because I feel like every year it's a new approach, a new way of thinking about your business and the sound you make. What's changed for you?
I think around the time it got me thinking, I was a little lost because I had this success with Cedric, making these, kind of more progressive anthemic things. And I had made a few for myself, but obviously I didn't have the platform for it to kind of reach people. The bubble was bursting a little bit, I think. Then I saw like what kind of reaction this track Got Me Thinking had. So I kind of, there's something there that could be, not that saying I was calculating that's what I should do. It was more like, I'm good at that stuff. Let me just have fun in the studio. So that was when I did like No, which came out on Tiesto's musical Freedom. And around that time, I obviously had this team of people, and I think nobody ever, I'm lucky to have a team with Stephanie and with Ed, and I never felt like they were telling me what I should do. It's more like they're really good at what they do. So I felt like I kind of put this pressure on myself, having signed at the time to Big Beat, to kind of try to have those like crossover things when maybe I should have stuck to doing like stuff like No, we're Sweet Memories, I think, still in that vein. And more recently, I have more fun just kind of being able to experiment and not focus on that stuff. Just like make cool stuff that I want to go out and play this weekend,
'Cause I think it's stressful to try and just make hit after hit. I mean, even Swedish House Mafia said that. Like, that you get tired of that chase. And then there's more notes from the label, from management. And, I mean, are you making music for management? That's not why you do it.
No, yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I think it can make the process way less fun. And you got to make it for yourself first, right? And then you can kind of tear it down for the fans, but you've got to lead the fans too. So do you get fans that like the older stuff? You have like, they divide into different camps?
There's definitely a little bit of a divide. So, there's certain records that it could be like a more underground-ish club versus, a more commercial club that resonate in both. But there's, I really do I enjoy making melodic stuff. And I think those kind of connect with people on a deeper level. Like I Miss You, that's one that really was able to have a connection with a lot of different people. I've been kind of stuck in this middle ground where I'm not going to stop doing both. I think, right now I've launching, my label Night Service Only and stuff. There's been more of a focus on the club stuff, but I'm still going to release, melodic stuff, but without the pressure,
Is that through a distributor or self-release completely? Or?
So I launched it, I did an admin deal with Spinnin'. So they're handling all the back end and all the contracting and stuff like that, but all the creative side is me, which is great. It kind of gives me the ability to not have to worry about any of that, focus on A&R and finding guys that I think are making great music and signing them to the label.
Is it different now with Spinnin' being owned by Warner Brothers that they purchased them?
Warner, yeah.
Warner. Well, Warner, yeah, they've even changed the name and the logo and everything now. Is it a different flow or a different staff, or is it still the main guys?
Well, Jorn, shout out Jorn, he was there. He was one of the first people who really believed in me at the beginning, and he's still there. And I think he's such like a big part of the heart of Spinnin'. So it's been great to be able to work with him on this. I don't think it's changed. The only thing I will say is they definitely have their systems going through. You're going through Warner, you're not going through the little distributor. I've gotten warned a couple of times, you got to submit your stuff quicker as far as leaving enough time.
Is it 6-week turnaround?
I think at least 6 to 8 weeks that they're at.
Just still insane to me.
Especially, we live in a time where it's just instant gratification. You push a button, it should be on Spotify, but the world doesn't work that way. So that's one thing I've had to learn, make sure I'm planning ahead. It's not really the artist that I'm signing, it's more, my own stuff, but yeah.
Are you doing TikTok and are you keeping up with all the platform arbitrage?
I'm not using TikTok for me as an artist. I go on TikTok because I think there's hilarious stuff on there. The reason I guess got TikTok is I had a bunch of friends who would just repost Insta stories of really funny TikTok videos. So that's how I kind of got into it. I have a cousin, she's younger, she goes to USC, and she's has 1 million TikTok followers, and she's like an ambassador for TikTok. And I think it's a great way to engage with your audience. I think some people are gonna get heat for trying to be on TikTok because it's the thing to do. But it's like anything else, people want to know who you are as an artist, and it's a great way to not have the seriousness of an Instagram post. And
the fact that it's changing the charts.
Oh yeah,
it's crazy. Yeah. It's changing how people consume music.
Yeah. Well, I think that's what now people are going to ruin because they're going to try to capitalize on it. Things have happened organically. I think for the most part, I've heard stories of people kind of paying a little bit of money to a couple of people who have a big following, and it creating that viral moment for a song, and it really translating to Spotify plays. But So that's the only worry about what can happen on that end, I think.
I think it's scary to create a body of work on any platform and then having it disappear. Like you've seen Vine stars foreclosing on their houses. You know, guys were getting $200,000 checks at some point, and you know, it's not sustainable. It's like you got to be collecting email opt-ins and phone numbers. And are you doing the text thing?
No.
Like community. I'm doing a custom version of it with Ringy, but it's cool because everybody opens their texts. So I think it's funny. I think that's
text and email are never going to go away. I agree. I had that moment with Snapchat. Do you
still use it?
No, I never really did, because my perception of it as, you know, as an artist, it's, what do people say? I want to get booked at this club and this club. What are they going to do? They're going to go to your Instagram. They're going to go to your Spotify. They're going to see how many followers you have. Snapchat, you can have 1 million people following you, but no one outside of that can really see it. Nobody can just go to your Snapchat and see like how you're doing it. So that was my thing, that I was like, I'll have Snapchat for me and my friends to like goof around, but it's not something that I'm going to use for my like artist platform.
Do you think it's going to change now? I feel like we're on the precipice of all this technology changing. We talked about SiriusXM, Pandora, but now we've got offline storage lockers with streaming. A lot of these services like Beatport, Beatport Link or whatever, you know, they're dovetailing all of SoundCloud, Spotify, all this integration into Pioneer world to be able to save it on USB sticks. It seems like it's kind of limited, but do you think this is where it's headed, or is this a sideshow? You
know, I bought my nephews like this little, Pioneer makes this like tiny controller. I got them We DJ, or they had like an iPad. And it was insane that you can link your Spotify account and have access to all of Spotify and mix with it. Like, you know, I think it is the future. I really do. You know, when I was back doing these mobile parties, you know, my dad didn't have internet at the beginning. And I would stress the fuck out, like, if I don't have this song that they want or something, you know? And the ability to be like, oh, shoot, I forgot to put this on my USB, or I wish I had gotten this before the show, and be able to just instantly have it. It's kind of amazing.
Doesn't it feel very static? Like you're headed to the gig, and in your mind, you're like, shit, I want to move around some stuff. I mean, not that, you know, you'd have it pre-planned or anything, but in my mind, I'm always like, I need, this song isn't set up. I don't have my cue points here for this track. And I mean, Pioneer's got a very limited version of Rekordbox. Do you use Rekordbox?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. I'm amazed how many guys don't use Rekordbox and they're playing on CDJs. It's like shooting yourself in the foot.
Yeah.
But some people are old school, you know. It's hard to change the way you work with DJing.
I don't do cue points or anything. I do it obviously to analyze waveforms and to organize.
At all?
No, I mean, what are the new ones? The Mac 2 or what are the new Nexus? No, the Nexus 2s.
Yeah.
So what was a game changer for me was beat jump. Like, I don't really like to. If it's a big festival, I kind of have an idea of where I want certain songs to be in my set. But like most shows, like I don't really like to pre-plan. And I don't use cue points because I'm lazy.
Are you doing hard edits?
No, so on the Nexus 2, they have a beat jump, the way you could do it in Tractor. It's on the screen. I can skip ahead and be in whatever section I want in a matter of seconds. The problem is sometimes you play in a club that doesn't have it, has the old ones, and like becomes a problem. But
I like you mentioned, it's a family that's using the We DJ, and it's becoming almost this prosumer thing, if not even just a hobbyist thing, where people are consuming music on all these different apps with Pioneer. You don't have to be a professional DJ to enjoy DJing. And it's a big world with mobile DJs, wedding DJs. That's a much bigger industry than I even realized. But I love that you could be getting all those streams from people just enjoying your music at a party, and it's not a passive playlist.
Yeah.
That's a big deal.
Yeah.
Because it's one thing to have a gatekeeper like Austin curating stuff, and he does a great job. And maybe that role will be more of a panel of people in the future. We'll see. But these are very powerful roles. But if people are their own gatekeepers and they can be actively playing it rather than just waiting for a playlist to cue things up like a jukebox, I think it's really exciting.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's just, you know, there's always going to be people with more curiosity to be a DJ or, you know, kind of dictate what is playing when. So I think the way that Spotify's done it, and obviously the way you can share playlists and stuff. And then on this end, what you could do with just a little controller and DJ or whatever the hell it's or DJ is awesome.
Do you think Denon's gonna make an impact?
I tried them out before they were out. It was a couple of years ago at EDC Orlando, and I was like, these are sick, but the problem is, they're so expensive, and most clubs already had to bite the bullet and get Pioneer. It's so hard to become the industry standard. I played on them at one show, it was after Tiesto, and it was at Miami Music Week, it was at Live, places rammed. I had been told not to use record, because you can do it, I think, with Rekordbox playlists. I figured out a way to kind of have my music in just folders, but whatever. With it, I was still within the first song. I'd hit the loop button, and I was like, I literally had to turn around and be like, "Yo, help, Tice! How do I get it out of the loop?" And he turns around, starts laughing, and just unclicks it.
And he's no longer using it.
No, he's back on Pioneer. Yeah.
I love the feel. I mean, I've had a very brief experience with them, and it seemed like they were way brighter than CDJs. But I also have seen the new Nexus that's coming.
You've seen it,
and I can't say anything, but there's some similarities.
Yeah,
I think it's been stuff that's been in the works for a while. But
yeah, I think it was a wake up call for Pioneer, to be honest. There's certain features that I think people wanted that even the beat jump that Pioneer added. This was an update because it's on the touchscreen, and it was around the time that Denon had came out, and they had dedicated beat jump buttons. And that, I think, Kaskade, I think, was also, he mentioned that too, having that on the Pioneer. Yeah, it's just, I see Oliver Heldens a bunch. I've toured with him a little bit. Every time I see him, I was like, you still using the Denons? He's like, yeah, I love them. But he has he has a pair that he has a team that he could take them, or the club is going to get them for him.
Right, they drop ship them out.
I don't think a club is going to necessarily shell out to have a pair of those if I request them. But yeah, they are great. But I'm really curious to see what Pioneer comes with next.
It is good, though. I think there always needs to be competition in the world. And
I think Pioneer, ever since they sold, or what did they do?
There's always private equity companies duck in and buy a chunk of companies and rename it, and it just passes through hands. So I think it got split initially from the TV and car radio division, and these mega Japanese corporations that make everything from lawnmowers to CDJs.
Yeah, I've had one of the Sleeping Boo, Mike from Sleeping Boo. He came by my studio and he brought a couple of the pieces that they've made, and it's amazing what they're doing. The what's it called? Is it the squid? It's it's so cool. Yeah,
I got to try that.
Yeah.
I told them, I went over there for some R&D stuff to the Tokyo office, headquarters. I was like, you guys, I don't think they've implemented this, so I'm not going to get in trouble. But I said, I want you guys to make a little matrix in the arrangement so that I don't have to do a destructive edit every time I want to skip these ridiculously long open breakdowns everyone still puts in their tracks.
Yeah.
I still don't understand that. It's cool to have, you got your two drops, you got your two, maybe some variations, but people leave these wide open breakdowns where you feel kind of naked playing it live. So I always have to do edits. Everybody edits differently, but I wanted a way to have it preset so it would skip it without having to rebounce it, cut it and rebounce it in Ableton every time.
Yeah.
But maybe we'll see that someday. Okay, so getting into more tech stuff, tell me about your setup, your current studio, and some of the changes you're going to make.
Right now, current studio, MacBook Pro. I do everything on my laptop. Just because of traveling, I just wanted one machine, and I was using a laptop already, for a long time. I recently got an Apollo, the 8X,
nice.
Which sounds amazing. Before that I had an Ensemble still, and just converters are great. I can hear the difference. I just splurged a little bit, which is glorified volume now, but I got the Grace Design.
Well, it says the decibels you're monitoring.
Yeah. Ooh. I had an SPL one before, and this sounds also amazing. Slate mic, I love it. I'll record in the studio. The room's treated GIK acoustics. I've been using that stuff for a long time.
You using a lot of UAD, any go-to UAD plugins?
Yeah, honestly, a little bit less though, just because I hate having to connect shit. There's something about, sometimes I'll come up with an idea, I'll sit on the couch with my laptop. So I stopped using until the very end. I'll use the Pultec EQ a lot. The Shadow Hills compressor.
Is that your mastering chain?
Sometimes, yeah. Sometimes I'll put on drums. For a long time, I was using Precision Maximizer a lot.
I still love that
on the limiter.
You stopped using it?
I was sworn to secrecy, but I have a new thing. It's not a UAD. It's better. I can't explain it. But
is it invisible limiter?
No, I was using invisible limiter too. It's something else. Shout out to Franklin, this sick Italian engineer. Really, really talented guy. What else am I using from UAD? I'll use not new now, but the SSL channel strip. I'll use the Neve channel strip a bunch. I'll use a lot of Ableton stock stuff though. And then I got Moog, Sub 37. I have a Minilog. I have a Virus TI that I just turned on for the first time in like 3 years.
I feel like everybody's got a Virus sitting in the corner of their studio that's not hooked up.
Yeah.
I don't know who would do that.
I had 2 previous ones. The first one I bought, I sold. And then I was like, why did I sell it? Bought another one, and then I sold that one. As soon as I didn't have it, I was like, I really want it. And then I bought another one used. But I never use it. It's so stupid. But now I'm not going to sell it because I'm going to want it when I don't have it.
You can't see it, but in my studio, I have a Virus TI-2, I think. Mm-hmm. But something when it's rack-mounted and there isn't a keyboard attached to it, I end up not using stuff. So now I get everything with the keyboard. Mm-hmm. But it's a weird conundrum because it sounds amazing. Mm-hmm. I made a splice pack with it, and it sounds incredible. And I'm like, but I never use it.
Yeah. Honestly, you know this guy, Seven Skies?
Yeah.
He kind of put me back onto it a little bit. So I've been messing with it again because of him. You know,
What did he say?
There's certain things that you can do on the Virus that just do not come close with plugins, like with synth, like soft synth plugins.
So like the processing in there, the
saturation? The phase, like I believe them, and he showed me. Yeah, I'll never sell it, I guess.
I feel like instruments you can't lose.
Yeah.
Like we can often get into the weeds buying preamps, comparing preamps and compressors, and I don't know why outboard gear and software become like this thing of comparison. Maybe because there's so many damn plugins, but I feel like I never regret the instrument purchases.
Yeah.
Unless it's like with the Moog One or $7,000 synth, which I have not bought. I heard Above and Beyond return theirs.
Oh wow! Oh man!
Yeah, big gossip.
Yeah, I think the next thing, honestly, I don't want to go too crazy into modular stuff, but I think I want to buy a couple semi-modular pieces. That's probably the next thing I'll buy outboard, because I feel like there's stuff that you can do on that you can't. It's harder to recreate in software. But other than that, I use Diva, which kind of recreates a lot of these analog synths, and it sounds amazing.
Sounds so similar.
Yeah. Other than that, I've been on my Focal monitors for a while. The twins and the sub, and that's it.
And you're mixing, mastering, doing everything yourself, or doing stem mastering with someone else?
I've always mixed everything myself, and I'll make like a mock master to test out. And some stuff I've released will just be, my master, but almost 90%. I have a master guy that I've been using forever. His name is Ricardo Gutierrez, ricardomasters.com.
Nice.
And he's somebody that's kind of been there as I've grown, and I met him actually through Cedric as he was doing the mastering all the Cedric stuff back then. And he's like this guy who's just constantly learning. He's a guy who went from being completely analog to being completely in the box. He's killing it. He's mad. I think he's great.
Did I mess with all that analog summing for a while? And I couldn't tell the difference. I feel like it's good and it works for a lot of people, but I did it and it was more about the converters going in and out. Maybe it just, the waveforms look a little different, but it wasn't this night and day, arms open, analog, super wide sound that people were saying it was. But then, you got guys like Luca at Studio DMI. He loves just slamming his stuff through outboard gear. There's so much to be said for that clipping.
I think the analog distortion, the analog clipping is, I think, where the magic is. You
can push stuff a little further. Maybe.
But I think the style of music that we make, it's like everything is not meant to be distorted. I think there's different styles of music that I think it might be more noticeable.
Just throw OTT on it.
Yeah. We're going to throw OTT on anyway.
I can't believe how many sessions I get. Yeah. And I think they sound amazing with this effect on it, but it's I'm working on a track right now. This guy's got OTT on every channel. And he's doing all stuff with stock plugins, and it's total unknown producer, and it sounds amazing. Sounds fat. It's got on the master. It's got on the individual plugins. I'm like, Jesus.
I'll still do, if all else fails, we're like, let me try to just throw on OTT. I think Saturn is the new OTT.
Yeah.
Like, a lot of people are using that for the same kind of effect now.
You know, it's a secret weapon. Maybe it's not, but that SPL twin tube that UAD distortion is incredible. Like, I throw that, even though the Nexus presets are pretty processed, but even some of the Tiesto pack, whoever made that, probably Sevens guys, throw the SPL twin tube on there, and it's they do that, and then that subsynth, the UAD subsynth, Brainworks plugin, incredible.
I only started using the twin tube recently on the master without.
Oh wow!
And this is again Franklin. This guy's he's like, try it, and it's just the harmonics, not the just like disabling the distortion, but just using the harmonics knob.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, there's so many ways to do this stuff. You know, everyone has their own way.
It's a lot to juggle. I know the thing I struggle with is I can get this crazy fat bass sound or this lead. Like, I can get these individual elements processed so perfectly, but balancing that so that it has its moment to shine in the mix, so that the drum fill doesn't get lost leading up to the drop. The drop hits. I mean, there's only so much energy and so much bandwidth you can have at that one point in the arrangement. That is working with intention and getting it to sound that fat and that full at the end of the process. That's, for me, that's the hard part.
Yeah.
I can get it, but it's like you got to preserve it, because as soon as you start stacking stuff and layering and fear stacking, you think you don't have enough and you add more, and then things will just start phasing out at some point.
Yeah, agreed.
Do you ever, when you're getting stuff, when you're playing it live and you're hearing how different it is, I mean, you're hearing your stereo monitors, you're hearing a very different version than the crowd hears, which is kind of funny, because you're hearing a little bit of the room, you're hearing your near field monitors, whatever they are, L acoustics. Do you think about that, what gets lost in translation with mono environment or stereo environment, or you just make it as good as you can?
When I'm first testing out something, I'm pretty confident in everything other than the low end. So I'm kind of trying to pay attention to more how the kick and the bass work together, and then compared to everything else I played up to that point, and vocal level. But I don't really worry about. I mean, I'm conscious of it. I mean, I've spoken to engineers I have a good friend of mine, Ariel Burrojo, and he said to me flat out, he's like, yeah, it's phasing. And I was like, I don't worry about that stuff too much. Maybe my master guy is just helping me out and fixing a lot of stuff. But yeah, I think for me, the most important is kick, low end, and then the rest is kind of secondary. Because if you have that, that's going to be what's going to have the most impact as far as in a club, I think. That's the only thing that I'm kind of focusing on. I'm very over analytical about everything I do, so it's never perfect. That's the one thing that I get lost on. Like, I could spend a week trying to mix something just to go back to the first version.
Go backwards. Yeah.
I did this track called She Wants the D, which came out on Steve Angelo's Size. And I remember I did the whole thing in 4 or 5 hours. And that was version 1. And I sent it to Kreider. And he was like, yeah, I love this. And then I spent a week working on it. And then I sent him another version. He's like, no. He's like, go back to that first version. And I was like, all right, fine. And then I have this weird, like, either I'm, get obsessive, or I just get like the opposite of obsessive. And I'm just like, I don't fucking care anymore. So for that one, I just was like, all right, well, I sent the first version to Steve. And he was playing, it was my master that he was playing for till the release, really. And then I got it mastered. I think pretty sure Ricardo did that one. Yeah, I think that relationship, especially for the music we make, is the most important. Everything else kind of gets lost a little bit, I think.
There's always going to be some compromise.
Yeah.
Some sounds are going to step on each other.
Yeah.
So a lot of your records have, their root is the sample, like with the No record. Where are you finding these samples?
Well, my management wishes I never sample again. They're like, please stop sampling. I don't know. Sometimes it'll just be. I think for No, I had come up with the idea for the groove of it, and the melody popped in my head, And then I found the acapella.
Did you have to clear that one?
Oh yeah,
Bet you
that was a crazy
sample?
one. Yeah, so my team made artwork, and we came up with a plan to do a free download. And I DM'd it to Tiesto. I was like, hey man, I'm gonna be putting this out as a free download. And he listened. He's like, what? He's like, no. He's like, let me help you clear it. I said, dude, if you can get this thing cleared, sure. And so I didn't give it away for free. And that was before Miami Music Week, I think, whatever year that was. And then they tried for like 8 or 9 months and nothing. And Ed had helped me clear, he had connected me with this company that helped me clear another sample. He said, you know what? I got a call from my manager. They're like, Carlos, like, after like 8 months or whatever, Musical Freedom was like, you know, we're going to just, because I'm sure my manager was bugging them a lot about it, but they were like, you know, they're going to stop trying. It's been so long. And I called this one guy and I was like, listen, I know it's a long shot. It's probably impossible, but I, you know, sampled TLC, no scrubs. And the guy's like, well, he's like, I'm actually very close with them, you know. And this guy was able to get it cleared, you know, a year
Wow.
after.
So was somebody just blowing it off at
No, I don't know. Maybe they just couldn't reach, you know, sometimes it's, I don't know who was managing them at the time. This guy was able to get it done. And it's crazy because that's how Creepin', I put out another TLC sample called Creepin', because part of the deal was, well, if you do a remix for Creep, I think there was like a fee that they waived as far as like the master side. And I was like, yeah, sure, I'll do it. And then No did its thing. And I was like, I'm sitting on this. I kind of want to put it out. And I'd waited and waited and waited. And I just got to a point, I just said to the guy, I was like, listen, if they're not going to do anything with this, let me just pay the sample clearance and let me put it out. He was like, let me ask. And sure enough, like, that's how I got that one done.
So, because it's usually an advance fee and like half of publishing or all publishing.
Yeah, exactly.
Depending on how bad. I mean, like the Tiesto split with Chainsmokers, I remember looking at the writing list and being like, wow, there's a lot of writers in this track. It was like, well, those are all the writers on the sample. I forget if it was a sample or a cover. But I can't believe how many of these tracks are cleared on Spinnin' that are, I mean, a lot of
they are very, very like strict about it. You know, they will not put something out if it's not cleared.
But it's like a machine, it feels like, over there. Like,
yeah.
I don't know how they do it.
We got a lot of people, you know. Yeah. There's a lot of stuff going on. But yeah, they clear everything.
I never realized how big these operations are. Like Armada has over 100 people at the office in the Netherlands. I don't know. I mean, I'm sure Spinnin' is still massive.
Yeah.
You just think of dance labels being these skeleton crews of people, but not when it's Europe.
Yeah, that's for sure. Yeah.
Are you still doing stuff with Big Beat? Or totally separate?
No. You know, I finished my deal that I was in with them. And they're still great friends. I'm probably down the line, you know, hopefully I'll do something again with them, but I've just been kind of focused on, you know, I think for me it was latching on to, you know, Don Diablo and Hexagon, you know, kind of to help create more awareness about the music, and the same thing, you know, with Musical Freedom. And now launching my label, that's kind of been the focus for me. It's just kind of launching this through my own releases, get the awareness up, then start signing stuff.
And are you mentoring up and coming talent, or what's the deal flow like?
It's really kind of up and coming guys that I think are sick, you know, and they have stuff going on already. So it's not, I wouldn't call it mentoring, but it's just like, you know, I'm trying to create my own kind of brand that eventually I can be throwing parties, and it's like creating, kind of already having like this crew of guys that I believe in, that I think make cool stuff, and to eventually have them on a night, you know, Miami, or do a festival stage down the road. So that's the ultimate goal. I'm listening to a lot of demos. There's certain guys that I kind of help as far as maybe not this one, but, you know, kind of give them advice on the music itself. But it's hard, man. It's a lot of, between that and the radio show every week that I do everything myself. It's listening to a lot of music. But
are you hearing anything in these demos that you'd advise people not to do? For people listening to this that want to get music your way and want to blow up and get the CID cosign, what are you hearing people doing wrong?
I don't think it's necessary. There's no wrong way to do anything. I just tell people, like, if they're going for style, make sure you're referencing other records that you know are big in that style, you know, especially for the specifically for drum sounds and stuff, because drums are so important in this. So that's the one thing. It's like, oh, you're doing this, like, you know, reference this track, or because at the end of the day, like, that as a foundation of a specific style, I think that's so important. That's probably the main thing I'll say.
You can't like do a rock kick during the drop.
Yeah. Or can you? I don't know.
Maybe that's the new thing.
It could be.
Rock will make its comeback in 30 years.
Yeah.
Are you doing any live instruments on the tracks, or just keeping it sample focused? And
I've been doing a bunch of guitar driven stuff, just mostly they're obviously samples,
yeah.
But nothing like played live.
And these up and coming guys that you are bringing to the fold, the label, where are they coming from?
Some are guys that this kid Franklin and Foley. I've known them already. They're kind of friends. Other ones is just from music I'm playing in the radio show. If it's a name that maybe, you know, hasn't popped up yet, it's been a great introduction where, like, I'll play it in the radio show, and, you know, they'll DM me and be like, oh, thanks for playing the track. I'll be like, yo, I love your sound, you know, send me some stuff. Or the other way, you know, I'll just be like, hey man, I played this track, or I love your sound, and just start kind of relationships like that. That's what it's been.
That's almost the single most important way I've found new talent is through the radio show, where I get all these promos that have already been filtered before they get to me. I have like a show producer, and we go through all these picks, and I go, who the fuck is this? And it doesn't happen a lot, but I think every year, maybe 3 or 4 times this happens. And I actively hunt this person down. I go, we need to work on something. You need to do a remix. Usually it starts with like a remix thing.
Yeah.
Because I'm always looking for good remixers. A lot of guys are focusing more on originals than remixes once they get established. Like they blow up, and 2 years later they're like, I'm too big.
Yeah.
So we find that amazing talent. There's always this fresh pool of amazing producers out there.
Speaking of remixes, I saw Dead Mouse at he played in New York last week, and I heard he played, obviously, Longest Road.
Nice.
Yeah, that vocal is so good.
Nice.
Yeah.
I tracked that in Silver Lake. Like, I had to flip a mattress up with this shitty $150 mic, Studio Project C1.
And that was the final vocal.
Yeah.
Wow.
Slaving over that vocal. And it was funny because it was more about layering the vocal than putting a bunch of plugins or having fancy gear. But I love that, you know, you start these projects, you start careers in music, and you never know that you can do it with such basic equipment. And you think you're going to need this one gear will create the hit record, this magic piano that has these special keys that you don't have, and it's a fantasy. But you have to have that delusion getting started, this delusions of grandeur.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't think like, oh, this is a realistic career choice, because it's not.
Yeah.
But like, I think if you were getting into this and you knew all the complications and the pressures, you probably would psych yourself out. I don't know. The 12-year-old Sid, would you
up until I was like 24, at least once a week, I would wake up and be like, almost have a panic attack. Like, what am I doing? Even through working with Cedric, like towards the beginning of it, I still, you know, there's no job security. You know, it's such a crazy thing. I look at my middle brother, David. He's a creative, and he's an artist, you know, but he went the advertising route where there is a corporate structure and stability. And in music, there really isn't that. Even on the label side, it's not really necessarily the actual creating, but if you in A&R and you pick the wrong records for too many times in a row, you're not going to have a job, you know? And I think...
Then they have their Hotmail address, whatever. I mean, obviously they don't have that now, but I remember seeing there was so much clout that comes from that at Warner Brothers or whatever label. And then when people shift jobs so fast, it's like every 6 months now, your key man at the label is out and you're fucked.
But I think it's just, you know, it's going back to being an artist, and it keeps you on your toes, you know? Yes, I think stress can kind of affect you creatively, but it's just about keeping it moving and believing in your sound and being a little delusional, I think. Yeah. Like, yeah, I could probably make it and doing this. I don't know. I never thought about this. I just wanted to, you know, as far as making music, just wanted to make music because that's what I enjoy doing.
Yeah, I think, you know, you're creating music, you're almost creating fiction. You have to create a little delusion. If you were if it was a completely clear process of why you're doing it and what you're doing, it wouldn't be as fun, and people wouldn't even attempt to do it.
Yeah.
But I think it is funny. People think they're just, I mean, you have a feeling that you're born to do it. But a lot of people go, oh, it's not a realistic choice. They don't even try it. And so many of the DJs, I remember going to school in Boston, there were so many DJs that were killing it in the scene. And it was very territorial with the resident DJs in Boston, New York. And they don't do it anymore. They don't DJ. It's so crazy. Like, these guys hung on to these residencies, and the world moved on, and they didn't build their brand. They didn't create intellectual property. They didn't create a catalog of music. And they thought DJing would just stay the same.
Yeah.
But it's always shifting.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a different part of the brain. I think producing versus being a DJ, not everyone can do both. I think my personality leans more towards being a producer versus being up there. And I think it's something I had to get comfortable doing. There's incredible resident DJs who you know, that's their thing. It is a dying thing, though, you know, for sure. Yeah.
Although open formats come back to Vegas in a big way.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, it's this full 10-year cycle that's closed the loop. What do you think about all that, like with chaos and sort of evaporating residencies in Vegas?
I got to shout out Marquee, because they gave me a mini residency this year, which is great.
Awesome.
They believed in me since the beginning, and, you know, obviously I'm still only playing kind of 126, 128 tempo stuff. I'm going a little more commercial, but it's, you know, it's changing. You know, Marquee never really paid those insane fees that some of these other places have paid for artists, you know, but what went down in Chaos is crazy. You know, think about how much money they spent in that club, how much money they lost, you know, how it affected even the artists that were signed there. And, you know,
Damien Hirst did well. He was the sculptor that created the giant pool sculpture. And,
I hope he got paid.
Yeah, he got $70 million.
Are you kidding? Wow.
So he had the best residency of all, because he doesn't have to show up.
Is it still there?
It's all still there. I mean, they're going to have to repurpose the groin of the sculpture for kid pool parties.
Jeez, that's crazy.
But I was talking with Ryan, Kaskade, I don't know what's happening with all that, but it's a mess, because I think, money aside, it's a mess when you have your schedule sorted out and you've committed to time, to dates, and then you said no to other offers. You've had an opportunity cost. It's a big deal. Yeah,
I mean, think about it. You went there, leaving somewhere else. Everything's relationship based, so I think it's definitely affected a lot of people. Think about all the people how many people did this place employ? You know, think about those people. I don't know. Vegas is just ever changing. It's its own. It's not even really part of Earth, I think. Like,
it's an island.
Yeah.
In the desert.
Yeah. That you can have a lot of fun in.
But it does seem like the trend is, it's much more conservative with the residencies. There are many residencies. I'm doing a similar thing at Mandalay. Like, I'm not doing the 20-date insanity. Even Calvin's residency is not a...
I think it's because he's doing Ibiza.
Oh,
this summer.
Maybe I was just heading back to Ibiza.
Yeah.
I went there for the first time this summer.
Ever?
First time ever.
Yeah. Wow, that's crazy. Yeah. What'd you think?
I thought it was cool. Thankfully I didn't go in August. I went in September. It was still pretty busy. It was just funny that it was actually a real island with real things happening besides the dance world. Like, I thought it would just be like everybody is all just clubbing all the time, but there's farms and there's wineries. It was a beautiful spot. Went to Mallorca for a little while. But you played in Opium, Barcelona, right?
Yeah. So my family's from Spain, and Opium, they've been supporting me for a while. It was really this guy, Frank Caro, was one of the residents at Opium. After No came out, he messaged me, and he's like, I never met him before or anything. He's like, hey, I heard you're originally from Spain, like your family's from Spain. If you're ever out here in the summer, like, let me know, like, I'll get you a date at Opium. And that's how that relationship started. So I played there a bunch. Yeah, Spain has changed a lot, though. You know, I was just in Madrid, and it's insane how, like, I played in this club, and I had played there. I had gone to it maybe a year ago, and they were playing, like, cool tech, housey stuff, and it was just, reggaeton has taken over all of Spain. You know, that's all people want to listen to. I don't want to generalize that much. I think the underground scene is still thriving, like, very, like, proper underground stuff. But as far as, like, slightly more commercial dance, house tempo stuff, it's really non-existent. So it's pretty crazy. Wow. Yeah.
Is it changing now with the Elro, with the family?
No,
they have their thing.
That they are crushing it. I mean, Elro, It leans more towards underground. It's
the DJ is the background.
Yeah,
to an extent.
To an extent.
It's more about the show.
Yeah, but they're booking like it's kind of, they feed each other. I think like they are curating like really great lineups and stuff. I heard actually Ibiza is gonna have, I think it's Amnesia's gonna have a Latin reggaeton night.
Wow.
Which is unheard of, you know, like, so I'm curious how that's gonna affect Ibiza. Obviously, Ibiza's kind of, I wouldn't say what's happening in Spain's happening there, but it's obvious that it's, you know, music is changing, for better or for worse, I guess.
What do you think is causing this shift with globalization? Is it latent cultures in South American music culture getting exported in Central America that's been a little bit unheard because of the radio system in the US and in Europe, or what's pushing this?
I don't know. I mean, that's a really good question. I think like Despacito was like a really barrier breaking song, you know? So I think that helped in a way. Being from Spain, like I would go in the summers and like you're in a pub or something and they're playing mostly Latin stuff, obviously. Now more than ever, there's like the artists that are doing the reggaeton are like real personalities, I think, like J Balvin and Bad Bunny and stuff. So I think that has an influence on like it connecting with like American culture in a way more than, say, some of the people who were doing it before.
Seems like maybe before there was more of a paywall in terms of access to the music, where now if people have for $9 a month or whatever it is, I think it's in Brazil, it's probably like $4 a month to have access to Spotify, where these songs can rise in the charts and be pushed by, because that's all it takes to have access to the song versus having to buy it and make that physical purchase. Yeah. In regions where people didn't even have people don't even have bank accounts.
Yeah,
to fuel those purchases.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll see where it goes next. So, okay, you got the record label, you got new releases coming up. Any other big ventures happening? You're just focusing on music, head down, touring?
That's it, man. It's so hard just to do that, I think. You know, this summer was kind of the first summer that I felt like I didn't have any time to make music. So now, you know, at the start of this year, it was having the time and kind of refocusing and saying, okay, I don't want that to happen again, where I feel like I'm a little nervous that I don't have enough releases lined up. So it's just locked in and finishing as much music as possible so we can plan ahead and release stuff when we want to, not feel rushed or...
You're staying in New York, you're not going to move to LA, can't commit
to? I will say, though, I will probably... Like what I did this week, I think every time I have a show in LA, I'm going to spend a week just to do writing sessions, see people. And it's because that's the one thing, you know, I think I like to be in the studio by myself. I don't know how you like to work, but I like to be in my own space and just be able to experiment and be creative. But at the same point, you know, there's not that many songwriters in New York. Most people are in LA, you know.
It is crazy.
Yeah.
When I moved here, I didn't predict that it would be this gold rush happening. I had a gut feeling that a lot of people that I respected and loved as when I was making deep house, people didn't know that. But they were all here, strangely enough, here and in San Francisco. And the San Francisco scene that really changed. But it was strange that it became this epicenter where I said it was weather, women, and work.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah.
Now it's babies and domestic violence.
I'm almost there. But yeah, I love New York, man. There's something about it. I think, like, you know, I can get pretty lazy, and I think New York keeps me from that. Keeps me focused. You know, everything moves a little quicker.
It's an energy.
Yeah. And you know, but it's not that far. So I will be making more trips out to LA, but not planning on moving.
You know, we got to go next time in New York if you're around. Have you ever been to Blue Hill at Stone Barns?
No.
It's like this Michelin restaurant, but it's upstate near Austin.
Oh, okay.
Like you can take the train up or drive up. But some of the best food in the world.
Yeah.
And they grow everything on the farm. It's like an old Rockefeller estate.
Oh, wow. And I'd never heard of that.
This guy invents his own plants and stuff. It's incredible.
That's great.
But they have a restaurant, I think Lower East Side, they have a more calm, subdued version. One of the few like quieter restaurants in New York where you can actually have a conversation. We'll do it. We'll grab dinner next time.
Yeah, for sure.
But thanks for joining me, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
All right, so there you have it, my interview with Sid for Airwave. Thank you so much for tuning in. Had a great long chat with him. Lots of really juicy details in there. The whole process of getting his Grammy, getting the proper credit where it was due. So that was a really key story, I felt like, in his evolution as a producer and earning that respect. So great to hear all the projects he's working on, all his collaborations, things with Don Diablo, Galantis, Kaskade. So big fan of his stuff. Honored to have him on the podcast. Excited to see where he takes his music next, and excited to see what happens with his label, Night Service Only. So keep an eye on that. That's part of Spinnin' Records. And stay tuned. We'll be back next week with more interviews. This is Airwave with Morgan Page. Airwave is brought to you by RME Audio. Innovative, user-friendly, and high-quality digital audio solutions, RME offers a comprehensive range of audio interfaces, converters, and mic preamps, all based around its unique and innovative core technologies. Multi-platform connectivity across Windows and Mac OS and iOS class compliance has earned RME a global reputation for providing support to all users on all platforms. Visit rme-usa.com to learn more.